So one of the most overlooked aspects in improving shoulder health, stability, mobility, and strength are PNF patterns. What's a PNF pattern? A PNF refers to a diagonal pattern that the arms usually travel through that gives us core stability and integrates the shoulder, core, and hip all together. So we have these things called spiral lines, or these fascial connections, which is connective tissue that teaches how one area can impact another area. And if you think this sounds too abstract, research has actually shown that PNF patterns can produce better strength and performance than even common weight training exercises. So today, physical therapist Jessica Bento is going to help me go through some key ways that you can implement PNF patterns into your program, not only to improve your shoulders, but your overall movement skills and performance. So a great way we can start implementing these concepts is in a core exercise like the dead bug. So if Jessica gets her legs off the ground and presses her kettlebell up, the kettlebell is going to be facing her just to create that brace, that stability. While she's got a super band, she's going to do a chopping motion. So she's going to keep these two areas stable, and she's going to chop down at a diagonal like so. And then she's going to control the weight as she resists up. So her goal is to keep this bracing, this core control here as she's moving opposite arm and leg, tapping into a lot of these diagonal patterns. Creating that nice tight grip will also increase the irradiation or tension stability she feels in that rotator cuff and shoulder. So again, using bands is a great way, but the chop is an easier way to start because we're pulling down towards the core than if we pull up, which is something else we could do, but is far more challenging. So in the world of PNF that's been developed since the 1940s by neurophysiotherapists, traditionally the PNF pattern was an internal rotation of the arm out to a more external rotate position, which is hard to do without implements, but that's why it's great we have our mobility balls that we can do this with. And using a half kneeling position is another opportunity for Jessica to integrate her lower body, core, and shoulders all at the same time. She's going to start her arms crossed and slightly internally rotated and then pull them out and apart. So she's digging into her feet as she's doing it in both feet, and she's not going to allow herself to go in that lumbar extension because she's going to grab the balls as she gets to that end point, but she's also going to push to the ground. She can take a deep breath in and then exhale as she comes up, and then a deep breath back as she comes back to get a little bit more core activation through the exercise. But we can also look for differences from side to side in the shoulder mobility as we go through these exercises. So one of the hopes that Jessica and I have with you guys doing this video is that you see PNF more than just doing cable lift and chops, which these are actually more dynamic, and they're also more beneficial because of the tools that we're using too, from the resistance bands, the kettlebells, the mobility balls, now to our ultimate sandbag. When we pull the bag apart, we actually get better bracing engagement of our core. A lot of times when people do PNF patterns, they just kind of use their elbows and they get their triceps and they get their shoulders, but they're not getting the true patterns that we want. So we can get stability by just grabbing on the ultimate sandbag itself and creating that brace, which you see sets Jessica's shoulders in place. Now we can do something really dynamic like a lunge, which builds off that half kneeling position that really amplifies those diagonal patterns. So as Jessica goes back, she's going to rotate the bag to one side and then she's going to pull up into that opposite pattern. So you see how we're getting that broad spectrum and we're getting that connection from that shoulder to that hip. We're getting tons of that spiraling action. Now, we can work on, this is a lot for a lot of people. If we need to reduce the range of motion, we could. If you had shoulder pain or discomfort, we could come up just to a certain height. So range of motion is something we can always manipulate in a lot of these different exercises. If we wanted to progress it though, obviously it's hard to add a lot of load to these exercises because a little bit of weight goes so far. We can add a little bit more challenge to the lower body and the connection of the chains. So that would be reflective in something like a balance step. So when Jessica comes down, she's going to drive through both feet and she's creating that tension appropriately. She's going to go ahead and be able to have that pulling of the bag, the pressing down on the ground of the foot to have a lot of stability in that top position. And what's really cool is we bridged all the way back to that dead bug and wax chest. So if you see, basically we had, starting from the ground, a easier level of the exercise to standing, dynamic, power, and conditioning all the way up in the same type of movement. So at the top position, Jessica had that same dead bug, which is more in that lift position. So I hope this opens up to your mind of lift and chops and diagonal patterns. If you want to read more about them, you can go to our website, dvrtfitness.com, where we have tons of free posts and information you can see, as well as amazing courses that Jessica does that really elaborate on these concepts and really show you the impact they can have, whether you're talking about stability, mobility, corrective exercise, power, or strength training overall.